Put it on the mixer in 5, 4, 3.
Identifying as a mom, daughter, conservative, friend, parental rights activist, Republican Party delegate, lover of freedom, conspiracy theorist, mama bear, and force to be reckoned with, this is Raising Liberty with Lindsey Beckham. Good afternoon. I am really so excited today to be joined by someone who I just really look up to and admire, and who I have learned so much from over the last 2.5 years or so. Marie Rogerson is with us today, and she is a former member of our executive committee at Moms for Liberty. She also now is with Leadership Institute, who we all know I am just a huge fan of. She's over the grassroots engagement there. She has been traveling the country, teaching and training, doing winning workshops, and she's also now running for committeewoman in Florida for the Republican Party. So, Marie, we are just so very excited to have you with us today.
I'm excited to be here.
So, tell me, are you exhausted on the grounds over there campaigning?
Yeah, I'm in my campaign t-shirt. I have no earrings on. I've been out in the hot Florida sun for hours today, knocking doors, because that's how you do it.
Well, tell us about the winning workshops. How are those trainings going with Leadership Institute? We had Heather Sellers on just a few weeks ago, and so she's with Leadership Institute as well. So tell us how are you still traveling a lot of the time and just seeing people all over the country?
We are. So the beautiful thing about winning workshops is Leadership Institute's been doing training for a very long time, and they're extremely good at it. Heather, in particular, if you ever have a chance to take a class from her, she's awesome. She taught one of the first Leadership Institute classes I ever took. But these little winning workshops are unique because they bring the content directly to the local community. Many of our Moms for Liberty chapters are grassroots little groups of parents, and driving 2 hours for training on a Wednesday night, for example, can be a lot for a mom who's got kids at soccer and church activities and all the things going on. So we bring this right to their backyard, and we teach them how to communicate effectively. Because whether you want to run for office and want to win that way, or you just want to be able to win the hearts and minds of your neighbors, communication is key.
That's right. It is. And I so wish that I had been able to take one of these workshops 2 years ago, when I kind of was thrown into helping with campaigns and had no idea what I was doing. But so much goes into it, and you learn real fast if you are on the grounds, boots on the grounds, fighting for the issues that you care about. It's kind of almost imperative that you get involved in the election process, because you want to have these candidates who care about your issues actually elected into positions where they can make a difference.
Absolutely. And I think the secret sauce no one wants to admit is that most of us learn that way in politics. Most local candidates win by mistake, and they have a bunch of people who have no idea what they're doing helping them. And so that's why groups like Leadership Institute and the winning workshop we're doing with Moms for Liberty, and there's a whole bunch of others, are really important, because when you get up the level in politics, there's a whole bunch of paid people who have lots of experience and are willing to help you. But down ballot, where there's no money, there's not a lot of expertise. And so the more regular people who get involved, the better, because it makes those grassroots candidates more effective, because they don't make the normal mistakes most first-time candidates make.
Right. Now, Marie, I know your story, but I would love for you to share it. How did you get here? How did you get involved? You're a former school board member, and tell us how you came from that pre-COVID to where you are now.
Yeah. So interestingly enough, I'm actually not the school board member. Tina and Tiffany were the two that sat on the school board.
Okay.
My background is in politics. And if I actually trace the genesis of this back far enough, it really, our church, the church I belong to, has a semi-annual general conference. And one of the speakers talked about the disintegration of the family unit. And honestly, the spirit kind of convicted me and said, you need to do something about that. And so we became foster parents. We had 13 children come through our home in the span of a year, which was the hardest thing we've ever done, one of the best things we've ever done. And that kind of started me off on a path of parental rights, because the foster care system teaches you very quickly that there is a limit to parental rights. We defend good parents who fulfill their duty as parents and their rights. But at some point, for some children, there is an end to that parental right. And so it's a good perspective I brought into Moms for Liberty was we fight for parental rights, but that doesn't mean we let parents do whatever they want with their children, because you have to actually take care of your children, and you have to feed them and not neglect them and don't abuse them. And so that is kind of the background that I had. And then I ran a whole bunch of campaigns, was involved in local politics. And that's where Tina and I ran together in 2020. She ran for school board. I ran for Republican state committee woman, like I'm running now.
I knew you had run for something. I got that confused.
Yep. And we both lost our elections and started Moms for Liberty after that.
And so kind of the way that was formed was during COVID, right? I know heard you talk about doing some trainings, some of Chris Ann Hall's Constitution trainings. And
Yep.
I know you said that, and it just makes me laugh because I never would have thought, if you had told me that it would be what I would want to do in my free time to study the Constitution, I would have laughed at you. But that's what I do now. So I know that that's kind of something that during COVID you were doing, and then you all learned so much and knew that you had to continue that.
Yeah, it's actually, I love that you bring that up, because it's one of my favorite things about the genesis of Moms for Liberty. So Florida was fortunate. We didn't shut down our schools for too long, but in the couple of months that our schools were shut down, the Leadership Institute was running a combo course with Chris Ann Hall about the foundation of the Constitution. And I looked around, and here were my kids sitting at home with nothing to do. And I'm like, well, I know this stuff is wrong, but I'm about to ensure you know this stuff is wrong. We're going to take this Chris Ann Hall thing. And of course, there was weeping and wailing and gnashing of teeth and all the things. But they sat through it, and they memorized the amendments to the Constitution and all the things. And then again, shortly thereafter, Tina and I lost our elections, we had unexpected time on our hands. And the two of us looked at one another. Well, what are we going to do? Well, let's get some friends together and let's read the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence. And Tina was like, well, if you count me in for chocolate, then we're doing this. And so we had the Liberty Ladies is what we called them. And for months, we sat in her living room and read the Declaration of Independence, which is like this long. It's not long at all. But we were dissecting every single word. Exactly. There's so much to unpack. And it was so much fun. Like a bunch of women just sitting from various walks of life. Not all of them were super political, sitting there talking about the founding documents. And it was that like melting pot from which she and Tiffany and Moms for Liberty were born.
Well, you spoke at one of our summits, and I can't tell you how many times I've gone back to listen to it. I probably have memorized what you said, but you discussed what liberty is and the difference between liberty and freedom. Can you kind of just recap that? Because I would love for everyone to hear. I think everyone should have to hear what you said that day.
Well, I will happily do that, but definitely it's something that people much smarter than me figured out first. So I can't take all the credit, but for me, it's really, really important. One of the things I noticed during our study of the Declaration of Independence and Constitution was that they rarely ever use the word freedom, but freedom is what we most often refer to nowadays. Freedom of speech, that we're the land of the free, the home of the brave, all the things. But the founding documents don't use that word very often. And it kind of caused a question in me, like, why? What is the difference? Why have two words for the same thing? There's got to be some kind of difference. What is it? And so I started studying, trying to figure out what the difference was. I read a bunch of different stuff. I watched some videos because, that's our generation. YouTube is where we learn all of our stuff. And I came across a gentleman who pointed out the moral foundation of liberty. And it really kind of spurred this deep doctrine study for me. And the real difference between freedom and liberty, to me, they exist on a spectrum. Freedom is one side. And if you take freedom to the extreme, it's chaos, it's anarchy. It's, you can do whatever you want. It's all the craziness. Liberty is the proper use of your freedom. It has a moral component. It's if you are doing the right things with the freedom that you've been given, in my opinion, the agency that God has given you. And so to me, liberty is living the commandments of God and living in a way that is beneficial to you in the long run and beneficial to society.
Right. And so recently I have joined the Moms for Liberty national team as our interview team specialist. So I think that this might be your doing at some point, but we have a question that we ask all people who want to start a Moms for Liberty chapter in their county, and that is, where do you believe our rights come from? So tell us the
Absolutely.
correct answer to that question.
Yeah, when we do it as Moms for Liberty, we accept various answers. My correct answer is they come from God. But when we are interviewing people in Moms for Liberty, it just has to be something other than government or a piece of paper. Because if it comes from government, government can take it away. If it comes from a piece of paper, we can just rewrite, erase, change whatever's on the paper. But your rights are inalienable. They belong to you by right of your existence. And that's why sometimes we get confused in modern discourse because we call things rights that are not rights. We do not, for example, have a healthcare right. We do not have right to healthcare because it is the labor of somebody else. Do I want everyone to have healthcare? Sure, that would be great, but it's not an inalienable right. We have the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, as our founders wrote it, which actually was supposed to be property. But that is a right. Healthcare is not, abortion is not. These are not rights that we have.
So, what would you say to someone talking about education? Do we have a right to education?
Yeah, I think that's a fascinating discussion, actually, from a political perspective in the United States, because it is extremely clear from the Constitution that education is not a national thing. It is not meant to be handled by the federal government. We should not have a Department of Education. Education was clearly delegated to the states. And so every state has, as they should, developed their own way of going about that. It's unique from state to state. Some fund them different ways than others. But that's the way that it's meant to be, is it's meant to be organized by the state.
Exactly. I completely agree with you there. And you also talked about the laws of nature and the nature's laws of God that we have. So I love what you said when you said that when it comes to gender, like the laws of nature are you're born
Mm-hmm.
female or male. And talking about liberty and the laws of nature, that's kind of a fact. So it's not just what your truth is or what my truth is, it's what the truth is. And you said that, and
Exactly.
that's something that just makes it resonates with me.
Yeah. Well, and I think people like to think that the founding fathers were not religious. They weren't Christian. And don't get me wrong, they were not all one amorphous religious group, but they were incredibly faithful people. And if you read the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence carefully, you can see that. You can see it extremely clearly. And the fact that they put in the laws of nature and nature's God is a testament to that. And it is the laws of nature that if you jump off your roof, you're going to fall. You're going to fall. You're probably going to break a bone. But the laws of nature's God also show us that you are created in his image. And that is male and female, created he them. And that cannot be changed, despite however much some people would like it to be changed. That is an immutable, eternal characteristic of who we are. And we deny truth when we try to change it. And I think the most destructive cultural trend we have seen is a creeping away from the truth, a denial and a desire to change truth.
I completely agree with you. And, not only just getting away from truth, but just the government overreach and the usurping of parental rights and the tyranny that we've seen handed down from the Department of Education and the Biden administration concerning this Title IX rewrite. What are your opinions on that? Where do you stand when it comes to what the federal government is attempting to do with Title IX?
Well, I don't much like anything the federal government does, to be totally honest with you. So pretty much you can just fill in the blank and say Marie doesn't like it if the federal government is doing it. But I think it just actually goes back to exactly the point I just made. It's a creeping away from the truth. They're overreaching because they have forgotten the truth of whose responsibility it is to provide certain things, whether that be your own welfare or you paying off your own debt that you have incurred, or all the Title IX stuff. It is they have lost sight of what the truth is of who has responsibility for things, be that our children and raising our children. That is our responsibility. It is not the responsibility of government. It is our responsibility to ensure they're educated, not the government's. So all of it is a confusion of that. And I think Moms for Liberty has actually done an excellent job responding to the Title IX stuff that has been coming down, because it is incredibly destructive to our daughters. I have 3 girls. That's all I've got is girls. I grew up with 4 boys, but girls is what the good Lord blessed me with. And so I don't want to see them lose what we fought for. This country fought for female sports. They fought for female rights. There's a whole, not to sound feminist and all, but there's a whole long history of people who fought for women's rights here in the United States of America. And these Title IX changes and some of the other things that we are doing are just rolling all of that back.
Right, I completely agree, and I know Riley Gaines has her own foundation with Leadership Institute, and I love what she's done traveling the country and attempting to explain to the everyday person what's happening when it comes to women's rights and women's sports, just it all being stripped away. So I just applaud Leadership Institute on that aspect as well. And you are now running again for committee. How do y'all say it in
I know.
Florida?
Nobody knows what the name is. Nobody knows what they do. It's totally fine. It's Republican State Committeewoman. And I literally was knocking a door today and the gentleman asked me, well, what does a state committeewoman do? And I told him, well, the job of the Republican State Committeewoman is to ensure Republicans get elected. It's to help them get elected. And he looked at me, he's like, well, no, but like, what do they really do? And I'm like, well, what I'm doing right now, which is knocking on your door with information about me, but like 5 other palm cards for the Republican candidates you're going to find on the ballot so you can make an informed decision. And people just, I think we've lost, again, this losing sight of what we are doing here is, sorry, my little one is at home.
Look, I completely get it.
And we've lost sight of what the purpose of the party is. The party is not there to do a lot of the things we think the party is supposed to do. The party's only purpose is to get Republicans elected. And that is sometimes not what we're doing. So that is what I do. It's what I'm great at, is helping people get elected. And that's what I look forward to doing as the Republican State Committeewoman.
And you also have your own company, correct?
We're starting a consulting firm. Yep.
Consulting firm. And that's for people running for office.
Yeah, it's for local candidates specifically. So you'll find a ton of consulting firms out there that do congressional level races, that do state house or state senate. But when it comes to a school board candidate, it's really hard to find consultants that will help with that, because you can't make a lot of money. It's not a job you get into because you want to make money. It's a job you get into because you want to do good. And that is really the whole purpose of Tripod Consulting, which is what we're starting.
I mean, I know here in Mississippi, it's hard to even get anyone out to vote in a school board election. In Madison County, where I live, we have school board members who serve 6-year terms, and then their reelections are staggered, so you can't overturn the board in one swoop if you feel that you need to, which is what we felt during COVID when we realized no one would listen to us. And so, and even we have school boards here that are appointed instead of elected. So that's one thing I want to change here in Mississippi, is that we have a uniform way to handle school boards across the state, and that they're all elected. And I would love it if that they're all elected every 4 years during the presidential election. So therefore people are coming out to vote in those elections, because it's so discouraging that people don't get out and vote in the local elections.
My hot take, my unpopular opinion, is actually staggering putting our school board races and some of the other local races that are not in presidential years in with the presidential election is not going to get us what we want. Because on the scale of most informed electorate to least informed electorate, the presidential election is the least informed group of people that come out to vote, because they many of them come out to vote only for the president. And when you get into the ballot box, we've all been conditioned by public school that you bubble in your whole test sheet. And so they get into that ballot box and they just start bubbling down, and they have no idea what they're doing. Often,
That's true.
There are a lot of really good informed voters, so I'm not putting everybody in the same bucket, but that is the least informed electorate that we have. And so when you have a school board race that is in an off year standing by itself, you get the most informed electorate that you can get for that race. And so you have the best people who've taken the time to inform themselves on that race to actually elect your school board rather than a bunch of people who just went down the ballot and bubbled it in.
Well, I'm so glad I just mentioned that because you just made complete sense and changed my mind on that. So maybe
Yeah.
that's
We
something
run
I
it. We run into that a lot, so don't feel bad. There's a ton of people as we're going around the country that want that, and it makes logical sense when you think about it. You do want more people to have a say in who's representing them, but
Mhm,
I'm a big believer in voting is not for everyone. It's a right that you have, but if you're
mhm,
not going to do the work to be informed, maybe you should not take advantage of that right because you're going to cancel out the vote of somebody who did do their homework and
mhm.
did figure out who the right choice was just because you're going down the ballot and bubbling things in. And it costs a lot of money to run in a presidential election. Your little local races will go from small dollar to high dollar very quickly when you move them from an off year to presidential year because you go from maybe 20,000 voters here to 100,000 in the presidential year. And it takes a lot of money to run in those years.
With your experience, tell me how to encourage someone to run against an incumbent when they don't have the financial funds to do it. Because what we have seen here in Mississippi is that it just seems like people just automatically vote for the incumbent, the name recognition, and they always have the money and the support of the party backing them. So, how would you encourage someone to run when they feel already that they're at such a disadvantage?
Okay. Again, hot take. Sometimes they shouldn't run. There are a lot of really, really good people who run for office and then get destroyed by the process. So, running for office is not for everyone. You can have somebody who's incredibly capable. I would often actually wager to say that it's not the best candidate who wins the majority of the time. It is a name ID game, as you said. And so, generally speaking, the people with the most money win. So if you're going to go up against an incumbent and you want to take on that Goliath, it can be done. It can be done, but it takes a lot of hard work and it takes a lot of, if you live in Florida, sweaty work because you got to be outside and you got to be knocking the doors. That is the way, it is the cheapest way to contact a voter. It is expensive in time because it takes a lot of time. But knocking doors is the most effective way to win a vote, hands down, bar none, by far. So the more doors you can knock, the more personal contact you can have with voters, the better your chances of unseating an incumbent.
I love that. And, I can tell you and I know you've got stuff you've gotta do and you've got to go, but I just want from the bottom of my heart to thank you for all that you've done and all of the things that you put into play with Moms for Liberty. I can tell you my very best friends today are Kit Hart, in Maryland, Jamie Hinkle in Virginia, Jen Turner in Iowa, and then Rebecca Kosnick in California, and so to think that I would that's my group. Those are the people I talk to every single day. I get their opinions on issues, and I would never have known those people if it wasn't for this common bond that we share, that we saw what was happening to our children and our rights just being trampled on. Like you said, our unalienable rights given to us by our creator being trampled on, and us not being able to raise our children as we see fit, which is the fundamental right of parents. So I can't express my gratitude to you enough that you saw it needed that there become an organization who really fights for parental rights and then to take that to another level and to travel the country and to teach people how to run for school board, how to be successful in elections, and and even to carry that on into your own election in Florida. I had the utmost respect for you, Marie, and I cannot say enough wonderful things about you and thank you for all the things that you've done, not only in Florida, but across the country.
Well, thank you very much. I would simply add to that. Really, it is, and I don't want to speak for Tina and Tiffany because they're not here, but I bet they would echo my sentiment that it's really us that should be thanking you because the three of us could have gotten together and decided that we were going to do all of this stuff, but without moms on the ground who are willing to put their necks on the line in their own communities and stand up to people who have been part of a political machine oftentimes for a very long time, for the sake of their children, none of this would matter. It would not have gone anywhere. It is truly the women on the ground. And I speak from the perspective of an introvert. I am a homebody. If I could stay here and never see another human, I really would not be okay, because God did create us to be in community. But in my head, I'd be fine. I'd be fine in my own little four walls, never having to see anybody. But being pushed out of my comfort zone into Moms for Liberty, meeting strangers from all over the country, is one of the biggest blessings I've ever had in my life, that has taught me to love God's children in a totally new way. And I, again, really, truly thank y'all from the bottom of my heart, because that is, I will never be the same. And I'm so grateful.
And I completely agree with that. And I have, even more respect for you when it comes to being willing to give of yourself, you and your husband, with foster children. That's a something that we've worked on at the legislative level. Well, actually, my representative has really worked on, is getting these the foster families, the taxes, or the tax credits that they need to be able to afford to do the work that they've been called to do when it comes to fostering children. And we need good foster parents across the country. And I have no doubt that you are an amazing foster mom. So I just respect you. I think the world of you. So thankful for you. So thankful for Leadership Institute. And I'm so thankful that you took the time to come on and talk with us today, Marie.
Thank you for having me, Lindsey.
Yes, absolutely. And good luck with this election.
Thank you.
We'll talk to you soon.
All right.
So I really do. I really do think the absolute world of Marie, and so thankful to have had the opportunity to have met her and now call her my friend. And she has just really displayed what it means to be a joyful warrior, someone who knows that we are on the right side of these issues, who is not going to give up, who's not going to go away, who's not going to back down, but is going to fight for our children, their futures, the future of education, and fight like hell, but do it with a smile on your face, because your children are watching and because we've been called to fight in this mission. So I wanted to give a brief update on Title IX. I've talked a lot about Title IX on this podcast, and about the radical changes that are attempting to be made by our federal government and by the Department of Education. So this week, we got two injunctions. Actually, last Friday, there was an injunction handed down, and it was our lawsuit filed by Mississippi, Louisiana, Montana, and Idaho. So this radical rewrite and these changes that are attempting to be made by the Department of Education and the Biden administration have been halted in those four states. We got that handed down last Friday. And then Monday morning, we got breaking news that the lawsuit filed out of Kentucky, which included Kentucky, Tennessee, Ohio, Indiana, Virginia, and West Virginia, the injunction has been granted there as well. And not only that, but this week, the lawsuit that was filed by Moms for Liberty, which is a little different than the other lawsuits filed. I think there have been 11 total lawsuits filed now, maybe more at this point. But the lawsuit that Moms for Liberty has filed, along with the Southeastern Legal Foundation and the Young Americans Foundation, is different, because if the injunction is granted there, it will halt these Title IX changes that are set to take place August 1st across the entire country, not just in one state or a handful of states. It will stop it altogether, and that's exactly what we need to happen. And they had some arguments taking place this week, um, and at the federal government level, and I just pray that the precedent has been set now with these federal judges who've granted the injunctions in the lawsuit that came out of Louisiana that included Mississippi, and then also the lawsuit that came out of Kentucky that included those other states. So I have confidence that we will get this injunction that will halt these radical changes across the entire country. but we haven't gotten it yet. So that's something that we still need to be really praying about and looking into and keeping up with. There are some states who refuse to acknowledge the injunction even if we do get it. So those are states that just we were really going to have to find a way to get new leadership in those states or find a way to get through to them that our children must be protected. So there are some people who help sponsor my podcast, and I want to talk about them really quick. So um, if you know me, you probably know who Clay Edwards is, and you probably listen to his morning radio show. He's actually got the top radio show, the top talk radio show, especially when it comes to politics in the state. And he has partnered with Men's Health of Mississippi when it comes to testosterone, and he has been a firm believer in testosterone therapy as he started this. I guess it's been close to a year now. But if you are suffering from any of these symptoms, fatigue, decreased muscle tone, lack of energy, low libido, brain fog, sleep disturbances, that very well could be because of low testosterone. So if you text Clay to 601-327-8550, that's the Men's Health Institute of Mississippi. It's located in Madison, and they will do a free screening or a complimentary screening in order to find out what your levels are and find a solution to those issues and get you the therapy and the dosage that you need. So if you find yourself suffering from any of those things, this could very well be your solution. And I know Clay has told me so many times that once he started the testosterone therapy, that he really got his drive back, his passion back, and he was ready to hit the ground running every morning. So I say all the time, like, I feel like I'm exhausted. I don't know if it's from low testosterone. I think it may just be from 5 children and attempting to save the world on a daily basis. But if those are any of the things that you suffer from, it's very well worth getting that checked out. And then we call him our blue haired Fondren liberal barista. He loves that, I know. But Sean Yerkeron, and today's his birthday, so he drives me absolutely insane. But if you know Sean, reach out and wish him a happy birthday today. And he has also sponsored the podcast, and he has his own law firm. He served as a prosecutor in Hinds County for years. He has over 20 years of experience. He is now working as a defense attorney, and he practices out of his own firm, the Yerkeron Law Firm. And I'm gonna read his ad. It's not how I would have worded things, but again, this is Sean. He says, "Did you F around over the weekend and you don't want to find out? So whether you got arrested for a DUI after drinking too much or just simply forgot to flush your dope down the toilet when the FBI raided your office, call the Yerkeron Law Firm. They are here to help." Sean has practiced law in Mississippi for 19 years, with over a decade of that as a prosecutor in Hinds County, and has the experience to handle any situation that you may have gotten yourself into. Call him anytime at 601-906-9094, or you can find him at onetextlaw.com or on Facebook. And remember, just because you did it doesn't mean you have to be guilty. So call Sean if you're in any type of legal trouble, and he will help. He will make sure that just because you fought, you don't have to vote. Also, I want to congratulate Sean for becoming a part of the Magnolia Tribune with Russ Latino. I'm sure a lot of you, if you're in Mississippi, may know about Russ and the Magnolia Tribune and the great reporting that they do and the great content that they put out. So Sean has joined the Magnolia Tribune team. He had 2 articles that were released this week. One concerning the crazy psycho killer who started in Louisiana, made his way to Mississippi, and killed a young innocent girl. And then also, he's been in the courtroom observing the St. Patty's Day murder trial, and also wrote an article about that after that guilty verdict came down. And, I want to say that I'm thankful to that jury and that judge and that prosecutor, because I do believe justice was served there. The young woman who was completely innocent in the situation, um, Jubilee, we called her Juby, but she was a part of the daycare where my children went daily, and we adored her, thought the world of her, such a sweet, precious woman whose life was taken way too soon. So I'm thankful for Sean and Russ Latino and the Magnolia Tribune being able to cover that trial, because it was so very important that the public know what actually happened that day and that justice has been served there. So if you are wanting to know more about Title IX, more about Moms for Liberty, more about how to get involved, more about how to um, run for school board. I hear that we may have an election, a school board election, that we need a candidate to run for here in Madison County, where I live. That doesn't happen very often, but I think that there may be someone up for reelection who's decided to retire. Um, please let me know. Get in touch with me. If I don't know the answers, I can find them fairly quickly. And I just encourage everyone to know what's going on, be aware, be informed, know who's on the ballot, know who you're voting for. Like Marie was saying, so many people show up when it's the presidential election only to vote for president, but we have been conditioned to circle every single place where there's an election happening, or there's a place to circle. So we need to know who those people are that we're voting for, and not just vote for someone due to name recognition or because there's a place to circle on a ballot. And we do need the Republican Party to show up and help get candidates elected, help get candidates on the ballot, and help make sure that we get the right people elected, so that we're the most healthy as a local city, county, school board, which leads into state. And then that's the only way that we can make this country great again. It's the only way it's going to happen. It's the only way that we're going to get healthy, is to start from the bottom and go from the bottom to the top. That's the only way it's going to happen. And a lot of times in school board elections, when they are not coinciding with a big election like the presidential election, we only have about 3 to 7% of registered voters show up to show up to vote in those most local elections. And that's got to change. We've got to have people who care about what's happening in our country in order for any change to take place. So you can't just sit at home and yell and scream and throw your shoe at the TV. I mean, that's going to do nothing but cost you money on another TV. Instead, get involved, and let's knock doors for candidates who we know are running on the issues that we're concerned with. Let's make sure that we're voting for the right people, and let's make sure that people have the support that they need in order to get elected in the state of Mississippi. Again, that's the only way that we are going to make America great again. It's the only way to get healthy. So I just thank you all for tuning in today and for listening to me ramble on. And I hope to see you all back here next week.